Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your afternoon is off to a good start. Browns draft is complete. It'll be rookie minicamp next weekend, so Mother's Day weekend. All the rookies will be in town. Brady Quinn, former Browns quarterback, on Shedeur Sanders falling in the NFL draft.
From the guys I talked to that are either a part of an NFL team or in a front office, the interview process was an absolute disaster. And there's a lot of disrespect from their side of things shown in regards to the headphones and answering a FaceTime call and not coming prepared when given an install packet. All those things rang true. It's unfortunate, and I think, look, I've interviewed Shedeur before. He's a very confident individual. He's kind of unique in that regard. I don't think I've ever been around someone who has such an unflappable belief in their ability. And that's a great thing, by the way, in the NFL level. But I think for some people, when you talk about changing the culture, changing a franchise, all this change, you know, they're not asking you to come in and bring your brand legendary or anything else along with you. They're just trying to have you come in here and win football games.
Very valid point. Todd McShay, former ESPN draft analyst, now for The Ringer, talking about what he sees in the Browns draft class.
This to me was like an A minus draft, and I don't give out grades, but I'll let you know, like, this one would be up there with some of the best because they move back and get a defensive tackle in Mason Graham that most teams, not all, but most teams viewed as a top 5, top 7 player. Some teams saw him at like 3 or 4, and they move back and they get the first round next year.
Let's talk about how they hit, I think, a home run on every player that wasn't a quarterback. Carson Schwessinger from UCLA, the linebacker, first pick in the second round. I love that pick. Very productive guy, only 1-year starter at UCLA, former walk-on, was a special teams ace, and then just blew up last year. The 2 backs they get, Quinshawn Judkins, exactly what they need, that powerful downhill runner.
Yep.
And then they got Dylan Sampson in the 4th round.
Yeah, so I know.
The 2 backs, home runs. Then they get Harold Fannin Jr., the Yak King. With Njoku, like you can have more than one great tight end.
These 2 quarterbacks, they landed in the best spot that they could possibly land. There's zero pressure, and even though it's Shedeur, there's zero pressure that these guys have to play. Ever. And we got a first next year.
I understand.
We got a first next year in case neither of these 2 wind up being the guy.
I just don't know how you're managing this position. I just don't get it.
So there will be 4 quarterbacks at least to start rookie minicamp and OTAs in the Browns quarterback room. Mike Greenberg, ESPN, on how the Browns quarterback room shapes up in his mind.
Joe Flacco graduated from high school the year before I did. Yeah. Dylan Gabriel is not a prospect that people viewed in even the same category. I understand they took him before they took Shedeur, but I think there are extenuating circumstances in that. Kenny Pickett is on his 3rd team in as many years. I think Shedeur Sanders, if he is as good as he thinks he is, if he is even close to as good as his father thinks he is, I actually think he wound up in a great place where he has an excellent chance to be the starting quarterback.
I think you're absolutely right. They'll have a wide open quarterback competition. Now, it may start with Flacco and Pickett at the forefront because they're the veterans, they have the experience, and the other guys have to be brought along. But if you're looking at it objectively and saying, if he's as good as we thought he was before the draft, he can beat out Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco.
We'll talk plenty of Browns. Mary Kay Cabot, Fred Greetham, Chris Easterling, all straight ahead on the show in just a few minutes. Cavs trying to end their first series against the Heat and sweep the Heat. Game 4 in Miami, and the Cavs got after it in a hurry. Jared Allen, the steal and the dunk. Then Evan Mobley with it. And Mobley on the drive, and he gets the dunk. This is all early. This game ended pretty quickly. Cavs playing defense. Here's the steal. Mitchell finds Allen with the alley-oop, and he throws it down. Allen, 14 points, 12 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell had himself a night as well. Open for 3, he knocks it down. He had 22 points. DeAndre Hunter, another good game as well. He finds Mobley for the dunk. Mobley had 17 points. Game was over at halftime. Cavs win it 138 83. They, in fact, get the sweep of the first series against the Heat, 4-0.
That first 5 minutes, I think Jared Allen, probably led by him, but led by our starters. And then, Dan, when our bench comes in, we don't skip a beat, right? We even, get stronger, so, but we came down here with the right mentality.
Max sent a text last night in the group chat, just reminding us. And it really speaks to the collectiveness of the group, what we have. And then when you get out there and he sets the tone with a steal and a dunk, you know what I'm saying? Like, it really, And then he had some words that he said to me that I won't repeat, but that's when I knew we were going to win. Like, that just speaks to where we're all at.
It gives us another advantage. We've done our work early all year, came out of the gate and played really well, and then, getting this first seed, it's that's how you do it. That's if you're going to script it. This is how you do it. You try to get series over so you can get your rest and sleep in your own bed, and then you have some practice time too.
Cavs waiting for the winner of the Pacers-Bucks series. Pacers lead that 3-1, so they can close it out. Guardians hosting the Twins 4-game series, Game 1 yesterday. Gavin Williams on the mound, and the game did not start well for Gavin Williams. First pitch, and Edouard Julien, this one's not coming back. It's a homer on the first pitch of the game, 1-0. And it really didn't get much better for Gavin Williams. Still in the first, and Ryan Jeffers at the plate. And this one is deep, and it's staying in the yard, but it goes as an RBI double. 1 run in. Ty France trying to score 2, and he got a little aggressive there and gets thrown out at the plate. That's how the inning ends. In the second, Brian Buxton, a 2-run single to make it 4-0. That was all for Gavin Williams. He only lasted 2 through a bunch of pitches. 5th inning, Jonah Bride, an RBI single. You get the idea. The Twins go on to win it 11-1. Not a great start, and it didn't get any better for Gavin Williams and the Guardians.
Gavin wasn't at his best tonight. I think, spraying the ball quite a bit. They jumped his fastball in the first inning, and then when go to make the adjustment to start using more off speed, just having a hard time landing it. They got his pitch count up. He threw 45 pitches in that second inning. We can't let him go back out after that. So, tough night for Gavin. We've seen him better. We know he's better than what he showed. Just a tough night.
They were just spitting on all the all speed. Didn't really budge at it, but a couple times, and then wasn't making my pitch with the fastball really. I was all over the place and can't really happen.
Same 2 teams, Game 2 of the 4-game series tonight. It'll be Tanner Bybee taking on Chris Paddock over at Progressive Field. Time for us to take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to the Browns. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, is up first. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We begin by talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head right to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
After really reassessing the draft and seeing what they didn't draft, which was a wide receiver or any, I think my assumption is they're trying to build for next year, but we stacked up on running backs. What this tells me is that we're going back to running. Now, I know that we're probably going to go back to the Stefanski offense, but with a lot more nuance to it. I think we're going to have a quarterback who's a distributor. I think whoever is the best distributor will get the job.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So, Mary Kay, what about it? You looked at the draft. You looked at what they've done so far in free agency, and we'll get to a signing that they made late last night. Fair to say you think it's the Kevin Stefanski style offense?
I do. Right now, I think that's the way that they're going. And I do think that there is a chance next year if they decide to draft a quarterback in the first round and they go with more of a dual threat passer at that point, then they'll be willing to change things up. But I think that right now they're going to try to walk before they can run a little bit, go back to basics, do what they know they can do really well, go with that wide zone running scheme and play action, the West Coast offense, more two tight ends again, and just kind of get back to what Kevin Stefanski feels very comfortable with.
When you look at it, did anything really surprise you relative to the draft?
Yes. Going back up and getting Shedeur Sanders did surprise me in the 5th round. However, I did turn to my two colleagues, Dan and Ashley, just 10 minutes before that happened and said, I bet Andrew will go up and grab, or no, I bet Andrew will draft Shedeur. I didn't necessarily think he would go up and grab him and trade up to get him, but I did think that once he continued to fall, that maybe he would go ahead and draft him. So that was the thing that surprised me more than anything. I wasn't surprised about the trade down from number 2. I wasn't surprised necessarily about Dillon Gabriel. Everything else went kind of according to their plan, and it was just the Shedeur thing that caught me off guard.
So the Browns, I kind of alluded to it, they are signing a veteran wide receiver, Diontae Johnson. Played with the Steelers, Ravens, had kind of an all-over-the-place season last year when he was traded at the deadline, released, then picked up by the Texans. But it is a guy that the Browns are familiar with from having to play against. And when you look at it in total, he's a guy that has played a lot and caught a lot of balls in the NFL. Here is what the career numbers are for the wide receivers right now. Jerry Jeudy had a great season a year ago and kind of is that ascending guy. And after that, it's a lot of guys that haven't done it for an extended period at the NFL level. And in fact, Diontae Johnson has more career touchdowns by one than the rest of the receiving room. So again, this is a guy that has played a number of years in the NFL, in the AFC North. What are your thoughts just on signing Johnson and how he fits into that wide receiving room?
Well, they have to hope that Diontae Johnson, that whatever was going on with him last year, that was causing him to get suspended, to get cut by teams, to bounce around to 3 different teams last year alone. Now, this is his 5th team, the Browns are, in the last 13 months. They have to make sure that they are getting the best version of Diontae Johnson and that he's not going to be an off-the-field distraction, that he's not going to have attitude issues or problems, which were seemingly the case last year at a couple of stops. So he also has to look back at last year and say that I don't want this anymore. I want to get things turned around. I want to do whatever it takes to be the player that I know that I can be without all of the off the field stuff or the extraneous stuff. So if he can do that, then they have acquired a tremendous talent. But he hasn't demonstrated, or at least he didn't demonstrate last year, that he has gotten over the hump in terms of just keeping it on football and keeping his head together in times of frustration.
You look at that room in total, Jerry Jeudy kind of ascending that they traded for, and then there's a lot of young guys. Do you think they still try to add more to that room?
Well, literally, maybe, yes, they might try to add more to that room. In terms of Elijah Moore, if he doesn't sign by this week with someone else, then I believe he comes back to the Browns under that May unrestricted free agent tender that they placed on him yesterday. So I could see that happening now. It doesn't necessarily mean it will happen because he can go and sign somewhere else, and he visited Buffalo yesterday. But there is a chance that he will be back, and I think that would probably be a pretty good pickup for the Browns. I think that he had a pretty nice season last year. He hasn't gotten into the end zone very much. I think he has some upside there, but with some consistent quarterback play, I think he can do that. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. And I probably would still add one more beyond that.
Yeah, and you would think if you're going back to the Kevin Stefanski, 2 tight ends comes into it more, 3 wide receivers a little less. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, and that's why they went out and they got Harold Fannin into them. That was more important at that point than getting another wide receiver because they're hoping that they get Cedric Tillman back nice and healthy from that concussion that cost him 6 games and that he doesn't suffer another one. So if they can get Tillman back healthy and they've got Jerry Jeudy and now they've got a couple of other pieces in there, some younger guys that we've seen, and Diontae Johnson, maybe bringing more back. They should be in good shape from a receiver standpoint, and then they just need to maybe keep their eyes peeled for still another tight end, I would think, perhaps.
So the other thing relative to the Elijah Moore, they know it would be like $3.428 million, and if he does sign somewhere else, there's some sort of draft compensation that comes back, correct?
Yes, that's why they wanted to throw him into the mix as that unrestricted free agent tender because he does then count against their compensatory pick formula. And in the event that they end up with a draft pick or whatever, it will be in part because Elijah Moore factored into that.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk more about the Browns draft. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, Olo, are there any lunch specials near me?
You want to learn about Ohio Lottery's Pick 3?
No.
Okay, Pick 3 is a daily draw game.
Cancel.
Where players pick 3 individual numbers between 0 and 9. The numbers can be played straight, where they must be drawn in an exact order, or boxed, where they can be drawn in any order. It's quick to play.
I just want lunch.
Players can win hundreds, and wagers start at 50 cents. The next drawing is coming up. Want directions to the nearest Ohio Lottery retailer?
Yes. One that serves food.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave. T from Brook Park, Ohio. The Browns have been the Browns for so many years because they always have a distraction. The Deshaun Watson problem, now Shadur Sanders and his dad's going to be a distraction. Baker Mayfield and his antics when he was here, distraction, getting into it with news people. All these distractions. That's why the Browns cannot and will not be a good team because of the distractions that always come up. Thank you. Just an observation. Have a great day. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I understand fans thinking that. I don't know that everything is magnified when you are losing, and when you are winning, nothing like that matters.
That's true. And I think at least the Browns are used to dealing with distraction when it comes to their quarterback. So they can handle it. They know how to deal with situations like this. And I think they're fully prepared to handle it and to deal with it. It goes all the way back to Johnny Manziel when we're talking about this organization. And so I do think that they feel like they're prepared to handle whatever Shadur brings with him. And in terms of just him as a person, outside of everything else, they like his personality, and they don't feel like he is even as flashy or as showy or as sort of loud and boisterous as his famous father, Deion Sanders, was. I think they feel like he's a little bit more humble, a little bit more quiet. We'll see if it actually plays out that way. I think he has plenty of flash and razzle dazzle to him, but they feel like they can handle it. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, the other thing relative to Deion, he's the head coach of of the Colorado Buffaloes. He's going to have enough on his plate. I think he's going to be a dad. I don't think he's going to be inserting himself into the NFL.
No, I mean he will to a degree because he knows what Shador is going to be going through, and he's going to be in Shiloh, and he's going to make sure that things are going right for them, and he's not going to let them get into bad situations for themselves. But I think for the most part, he will try to let the Browns do their job and stay as hands off as he possibly can, unless there's some kind of just real serious issue going on. I think they'll try to let them run their show.
So we know Shador Sanders is coming. He's actually already in town, as he had posted this to his Instagram today. A Browns-themed workout place downtown is where this was. So he's here a little bit early, getting ready to go to work, as they say. I know you wrote an article. What does he have to do after that? Projected to be late first, early second, goes all the way to the fifth. What does he do after that plunge?
Well, I think he has to eat a little bit of humble pie. I think he has to come in here ready to work, ready to prove to them that he'll do whatever it takes. I think he needs to sort of lose the persona that he has a little bit, where he believes that he should 100% necessarily be the starter, because he's going to have to fight and scratch and claw his way to the top of the depth chart if that's going to happen. So he needs to do all of those things. He's got to take some coaching and some mentorship from Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. And then on the field, he needs to work on some things. He's got to stop drifting back so much and taking those unnecessary sacks. He's going to have to study the game a lot more so that he can make quicker decisions. He's got to get rid of the ball faster. And then he's also got to work on the spin and revolution on the shorter out routes and things like that.
So the other quarterback that the Browns took ahead of him in the third round, Dillon Gabriel, surprised a lot of people. I know you had said you weren't terribly surprised. Take us through kind of that Gabriel pick and kind of what the Browns liked about him.
Well, they first had really nice exposure to him at the Senior Bowl. Of course, they scouted him before that over the past couple of years, but they really spent a lot of quality time with him at the Senior Bowl. They really liked his personality. They liked what they saw on the field, and I think they feel like he is a fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense, that he's someone that can go out there and be a nice game manager and get the job done without turning the ball over much. That's basically what they're looking for more than anything this year, I think, is game manager, don't turn the ball over, then go ahead and hit some of those big plays as well. But for the most part, try to play some good, clean ball and make good decisions.
What are the things that stood out about Gabriel for Kevin Stefanski and the Browns when they evaluated him?
Well, I think even though he's short, he's 5'11" on a good day. Even though he is very short, he's got a nice above average arm in terms of strength. He has really good processing skills and decision-making skills, which is very important to them. He's got decent enough mobility. So he's got a little bit of everything. He doesn't necessarily have an enormous superpower of some sort, but he's got good enough traits to get the job done. And he also started an FBS high 63 games. So he's got plenty of football under his belt. He's got plenty of experience, and he comes in here with a bona fide chance to actually get some playing time this year. So I think that his experience had a lot to do with it as well.
So a name that Browns fans still want to know about, Nick Chubb, and take a look. Nick Chubb working out and looking pretty darn healthy. Take a look at the hops over the hurdles, then the clean, and that's over 400 pounds there. So Nick Chubb is definitely looking like he wants to play again, and he's looking like that, and he's pretty healthy. What is the outlook? And again, I know you've written an article about this. What's the outlook for Nick Chubb after you draft Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, two highly thought of running backs in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing to see that workout for Nick Chubb. I love to see it. I'm so happy that he's doing so well like that. And if the Browns don't re-sign him, I really sincerely hope that someone else will give him a chance. Now, sometimes those chances don't come until a running back goes down early on in the season, and then they give you a call. But hopefully he'll find something good before that, and he'll get an opportunity not just to be on a team, but to run the ball. The problem with the Cleveland Browns right now is that the room at this moment in time is a little bit crowded with Quinshawn and Dillon from the draft, and then you still have Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong. So Nick would come in at the moment as the fourth running back, and I don't think they want that for him. I don't think they want to bring Nick in as their fourth running back. I think they believe that there's something better for him out there than that if that were going to be the case. So I think it will come down to what happens with Jerome Ford. Does a team perhaps make Jerome Ford an offer that the Browns can't refuse? And do they go ahead and trade him? If that happens, then that opens up the door for Nick Chubb to return. So I think we need to keep an eye on that.
What about Quinshawn Judkins? I know you wrote an article about him. Who's he remind you of?
Well, he does remind me of Nick Chubb, and even just in the way that the Browns were talking about him over the weekend, just being that bell cow and squatting 600 pounds and just getting those extra yards and never say die and running through people and around people and over people. It just sounded a whole lot like Nick Chubb to me. So I think that he is sort of the next Nick Chubb, or they hope he becomes the next Nick Chubb for them. They're so excited about him. He's a big guy. He can get the tough yards. He can do the short yardage stuff, the goal line stuff. And, and then you bring in Sampson as that, that change up kind of back, change of pace, catch the ball out of the backfield, maybe put them on the field together at the same time sometimes. So I really think they have a good running game going right now.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question. Sampson's kind of those are complementary backs, I guess would be the way to put it. And Sampson's only 20.
Yes, they're complementary backs, and he was extremely, extremely productive at Tennessee. In fact, he rushed for 22 touchdowns just last year alone, which was 14 more than the Cleveland Browns rushed for. They only rushed for 8 touchdowns. That tied for second fewest in the NFL. It's mind-boggling to think that the mighty Cleveland Browns, who have had great running games for so many years, only rushed for 8 touchdowns. That was, I think, one more, I think it was, than Kareem rushed for in Kansas City. And that's just not going to cut it. So they need to at least double that number this year. I think they will. I really do believe that they will. I think they will rely heavily on that running game, and it will open everything else up.
Do you see both of these guys kind of fitting into what we believe is Kevin Stefanski's running system, the wide zone, the pin and pulls, all those things that they're on?
Yes, I definitely do see that. That is why they went out and they got these guys. That's exactly what you're going to see. And both of them can play every down if necessary. Both of them can catch the ball out of the backfield to a certain extent, although Sampson is better at that, and they need Judkins to come up the learning curve on that. But I do see both of these guys contributing in a big way this season, and that's why I'm also wondering if they might not see if they can't move Jerome Ford.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll go back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about the defense. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, love the show. Just a couple quick things. I was watching the highlights of the Harold Fanning Jr. This guy's legit. At first, he looked like he could be a wide receiver. Then the more gets in those highlights, you can see he's got a little size on him. What do you think about him splitting out? And then I think he's going to get some time. But then my question is he here to replace the Chief, or is he just here so the Chief can have some help for a change? Because I thought they were talking about giving the Chief another extension. Just want to hear your thoughts. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I will let you speak on those first.
Well, I do think that they probably will be talking about an extension pretty soon with David Njoku. I know that that is something that they want to do. It's something that he would like to happen. And so I do foresee that happening. And this really isn't necessarily a replacement for David, it's a complement to David. They will play more 2 tight end sets this year and more 3 tight end sets this year. And they needed a guy like Harold with great production to come in here and be part of that mix.
Yeah, he had like 117 receptions at Bowling Green. The other thing, it's kind of funny. When they drafted David Njoku, now he was end of the first round. They traded back up to get him. 20 years old. The same things you're hearing about Harold Fannin. Doesn't block great, but he's a willing blocker. Needs to refine this. Is really good running. You're hearing a lot of the same descriptive terms about Fannin that you heard about David Njoku as a 20-year-old rookie as well.
Right. So it looks like we get to raise Harold Fannin in the same way that we raised David Njoku. Now, hopefully, Harold Fannin won't give us as many fits as David did along the way. And I say that all in good fun. David has his moments. He had his ups and downs, and he fully owns those. So hopefully for the Browns, it'll be a little bit more smooth sailing with Harold. But you bring up some great points. They are very young at the outset. They can both catch like crazy. They're both big targets and will be used extensively in the passing game. And then as David went along, he became a much better blocker. And I'm sure the same thing will happen with Harold.
And, the run after the catch is another thing that Fannin is really good at. I know you also wrote an article, Mason Graham and Mike Hall. Those are, Graham was first-round pick. Hall was the Browns' first pick, second round last year. What do they hope they're getting with those 2 guys?
Well, kind of a rush and crush situation with those guys in the middle. They want interior pressure, interior sacks. Both of those guys can get the job done in that regard. In terms of Mason Graham, when you turn on that film, you see that he's in the backfield a ton. He's very aggressive. He's very active. He plays with some violent hands, and he just has a lot of burst and explosion. And it's kind of the same thing with Mike Hall, but we've forgotten about it a little bit with Mike because he had some issues last year that did not enable him to stay on the field as much as he would have liked. So if they can get him out there and keep him on the field coming off of his serious knee injury, which we don't even know the nature of the knee injury at this point, but if they can keep him on the field and pair him with Mason Graham, I think those 2 guys can be dynamite inside. And then, of course, they only help those outside guys. So it should really benefit Miles as well.
So we alluded to it a little bit in the first segment, but I didn't get your true thoughts on it. Browns trade back from 2 to 5. They get an additional first-round pick next year. Jaguars pick, number 1 pick, and an additional second-round pick, which was early in the second round. What did you think of the trade back?
I did not have a problem with it whatsoever. I know a lot of people did, but once again, I kind of knew that this was a possibility. So maybe I was just a little bit more mentally prepared for it than some people were. But I think to go ahead and pick up a second-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a first-round pick next year, I think that's just dynamite. I really do. And they've already transformed the running game with it, with Judkins and Sampson, with those second-round picks and fourth-round picks. And now, next year, they're poised to use their 2 first-round picks if they need to move up and try to get a quarterback in a much better quarterback class. They're poised to be able to do that in the event that they need to. Of course, they hope that they don't have to do that. They're hoping that Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders steps up to the plate and becomes that quarterback of the future. But in the event they still need Mr. Right, then they have the ammo to go get him.
When you look at what Mason Graham might mean for Myles Garrett, we've talked ad nauseum about a bookend. You had Zadarius Smith, there was Abdul Carter. It might be a lot of fun to see teams try to figure out how to deal with Mason Graham next to Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough load to try to hold off. That's a lot of power, a lot of beef, a lot of explosion with both of those two guys. And I mean, they could even do some really interesting things, and I'm sure they will, just in terms of flip-flopping and switching spots from time to time, having Miles come down inside occasionally, and vice versa. So I think they can do some really cool things. And I think that these guys are going to give any offensive coordinator fits during the week trying to figure out a way to stop them.
So the other thing that we got, Alex Wright tweets this out, cleared. Let's get back to business. Just so folks remember, 2024 season ended in October, surgery on a torn tricep. And Mary Kay, he was starting to kind of show out a little bit before he got it. I think people are sleeping a little bit on how good Alex Wright played last year before he got the torn tricep.
Yeah, he was really coming on strong. He was really, really coming on strong. And that's what they had always hoped for Alex Wright. And he was really starting to show up that way. So between him and Isaiah McGuire, I think that, you're going to have a combination over there of a couple of guys who can really get to the passer. And they might not each get double-digit sacks, but if they can total double-digit sacks together in the rotation, then I think you're really going to be onto something there in terms of complimenting Miles on the other side and maybe even taking a little heat off of him. But they should be getting pressure from all across the board on that D-line now, and that's exactly what they need.
I know you said you weren't surprised when I asked you about this. Carson Schlesinger at 33, so the first pick in the second round is a linebacker. How much do the Browns like what they got? What were your thoughts when you heard that? I was thinking it was going to be a wide receiver, a running back, and they go defense with their first two picks.
Well, I was actually a little bit surprised about that because I did think that they would probably come back with offense there, knowing that they really need to jumpstart this offense because it only scored 15.2 points a game last year, which is mind-boggling to me. But I did kind of think that they would come back and go some offense there right away. But that was before I knew they picked up the extra second-round pick where they could get some firepower that way. So I have no problem with this pick. They love this guy. They actually needed to find someone to fill in for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And they rave and rave about Carson. I know they're so excited about him, and they cannot wait to see what he can do.
Does it say anything about their expectations for JOK, or is Andrew Berry has said that they aren't really related, but when you take a linebacker who has a lot of the similar skills to JOK, it just kind of makes you go, are they really that concerned that he might not be able to be there when they need him?
I think there is that concern. Every single time we talk to them, they say that they just don't know when he's going to be back and that the time frame is nebulous. Well, that doesn't really sound like he's going to be ready to go at the start of the season. So I think we can just kind of start with that premise that maybe anything that they get from him this year will be a bonus. And they certainly don't want to rush him back into the lineup from that scary neck injury. I'm sure he's contemplating whether he can play anymore again at all. I'm sure the Browns have considered that possibility as well. So I just think that this is a good pick for them. Can't wait to see what he can do because they speak so highly of him that I'm very intrigued. I have to go back and watch some of the film. I wasn't really prepared for a player like that high, so I hadn't studied him very much, but I'm really eager to go back and start watching.
So before I let you go, I know you've written an article about this. The Browns have 2 first-round picks next draft. What is that? Are they positioning themselves to have the ability to try to get where they want to go to get one of, if not the top quarterback? Or is that just like, well, if we need to, that's what we do?
Well, in a perfect world, someone will emerge this year that would prevent them from having to do that. But in the event they still need to find Mr. Right, now they are poised to do that. They can take those 2 first-round picks and maybe something more if necessary and move up to get a really good quarterback in this draft. And if the quarterback class is as deep as they hope it is, then maybe they won't even have to move up very high. Maybe it's just not going to be an enormously big jump for them. But it will be nice to have that option in the event that they need it. If not, they'll go ahead and either pick two other great players or package it and find something else. But they are poised right now in what they believe is going to be a much better quarterback class to go out and find their franchise quarterback next year in the event they have to do that.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mary Kay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Great Browns coverage in the pages of the Plain Dealer. You can also check it out online on cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Hey, Olo, are there any lunch specials near me?
You want to learn about Ohio Lottery's Pick 3?
No.
Okay, Pick 3 is a daily draw game.
Cancel.
Where players pick 3 individual numbers between 0 and 9. The numbers can be played straight, where they must be drawn in an exact order, or boxed, where they can be drawn in any order. It's quick to play.
I just want lunch.
Players can win hundreds, and wagers start at 50 cents. The next drawing is coming up. Want directions to the nearest Ohio Lottery retailer?
Yes. One that serves food.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, guys. Love the draft. Andrew Berry let the board fall to him, went after his priorities, made the trades necessary, and made enough picks to get some quality starters and valuable contributors over the course of this year instead of playing for the future like every Browns regime has been trying to do since 1999. He followed the Eagles' path. He realizes that you can't upgrade a team if you don't have a team. Kudos to him. I noticed he didn't draft a wide receiver. Smart move because he knows he can't evaluate wide receivers in the draft. You can count on a trade coming anytime soon, just as happens every year. Thank you guys for listening and love the show.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, we'll talk about wide receiver in a minute. I know you wrote an article, takeaways from the draft, good, bad, the ugly. Take us through that when you look at the Browns draft.
Well, it was a strange draft all along, and I think we talked about it here. All signs pointed to taking Travis Hunter. I mean, Andrew Berry did a masterful job of kind of when he explains how great Hunter is and compared him to Shohei Ohtani, you're thinking, how in the world do you pass him up? He usually doesn't heap praise on a potential draft pick, but you felt either he was trying to get the Titans to take him so they could take Cam Ward, or he was so sure they were taking Cam Ward that he didn't care what anybody thought. And then he turned around. It leaks out that they had a deal in place to make the trade a couple weeks before if Cam Ward wasn't available. And so I guess you're kind of expecting a unicorn and you get a wrestler, is one way to put it. I think it's a really practical pick when you get away from it. Kind of like you think back Joe Thomas year, everybody wasn't enamored. You knew he was a good player, and then he spends 10 years and goes to Hall of Fame. If you could get that out of Graham, I mean, a run-stopping defensive tackle. You watch the game against the Buckeyes against Michigan. I think the last 2 years, Graham was a big reason why Ohio State couldn't run the ball in those games. And so I really can't fault it. You put him with Myles Garrett and Jim Schwartz. We talked about getting the defense back up to snuff. So I think there. But when you look at it, you move down 3 spots and you get Graham, who Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com had him as the 4th best player in the draft. And you got the 36th pick, and you got Quinshon Judkins, and you got the 126th pick, you got Dylan Sampson. So you really got 2 top-tier running backs, at least draft prospects, along with one of the best players in the draft to move down 3 spots. You lost a lot of the sizzle. I get it, with the two-way player, but I think it's a big thing. And, oh, by the way, you get the number 1 pick of the Jaguars in 2026. So if the quarterbacks don't work out, we'll be right back here next year talking about the exact same thing, who they're going to take at quarterback.
Were you surprised at Gabriel? That one kind of shocked me.
Yeah, I was. With all the names thrown around, that wasn't one that you were expecting. In fact, before the pick that night, I had a pretty reliable source text me, and when I was asking about Milroe and Sanders, and they said, "Don't be surprised if they're still there." But name to keep an eye on was Will Howard. So then it's Dylan Gabriel. So yeah, I don't know. After the pick, Barry said that they thought they could get him there. That's a guy they targeted. I think really we've had so many smaller quarterbacks here, you kind of get tired of it. But I think, if the guy was a couple inches taller, he probably would have went much higher when you look at what he did and his arm and his stats and all those type things. But all your projections said you could probably get him in the 5th round. Sanders was supposed to be a 1st or 2nd round. You get him in the 5th round. So all's well. We talk about getting the quarterback right. Why not take as many swings as you can? And the other thing I feel that with both Sanders and Gabriel is they look at it as assets and value. And a year from now, if both look pretty good, you can always trade one and pick up a draft pick for them in this quarterback needy era that we're in. So I was a little surprised, but I can see, when you look at what he's done, it's hard to argue with some of his background.
Yeah, so relative to wide receiver, Andrew Berry hasn't taken one before the 3rd round. He's taken a couple in the 3rd, some in the 5th, some in the 6th, some in the 7th. One of the 3rd rounders, Cedric Tillman, I know you wrote an article about him, talked about his health, goals, and what he expects to be a big season. Take us through that article.
Yeah, actually, I had a chance to be with him at a Brownsbacker event in Rochester, New York over the weekend, and we'll have the video out in the next day or two. But basically, he told me he's 100%. He's ready to go. Not concerned. I talked about finishing the last 2 years with concussions. He feels that's behind him. He's healthy. He's not worried about it. But more than anything, he told me that he really wants to, he told Andrew Berry he wants to be not only, the number 2 receiver, he looks at himself as a number 1. And right now, without drafting anybody, now, of course, they signed Diontae Johnson, and they might bring back Elijah Moore. But, he's probably your number 2. And we saw in that it was a short sample size, but in those 3 games before he got hurt, he caught 21 passes, 255 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It was like one of the hottest stretches in the NFL for the season, and he's just got to stay on the field. He knows that, and hopefully he can. But I really do think he's got to. He said, he's learned in the first 2 years, and he really feels comfortable and he's ready to have a breakout year. So if he can break out along with what you saw from Jerry Jeudy last year, I think you can really have, a great passing game if you can find somebody and get him the ball. We saw night and day when Jameis Winston and DTR even took over in that game against the Bengals. I think Tillman had like 9-10 targets and caught 7-8 passes. It was like, where did that come from? So you just got to have a quarterback that can get him the ball, and I think that bodes well for the future if he can stay on the field. So I do think they need some more help, but he's pretty confident that he can be the guy.
So you also wrote another article I'm curious about. I was surprised by Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker at 33. Take us through that article and kind of what you thought with that pick.
Well, linebacker is not a position that they have valued. The highest linebacker they have drafted was when they drafted JOK. They traded up in the 2nd round to get him at 52. Schlesinger, they just took with the 33rd pick, the first pick when they had their complete pick. Now, they really liked him, and I know he graded out well. the risk, I think, is that he only played 1 year, really, and he had a breakout year. But it's not a position they usually, value because a lot of times in Jim Schwartz's defense, he only plays two linebackers, and it was JOK and Jordan Hicks. Now, Hicks is 32. Schlesinger was picked to be the green dot and probably take over for Hicks eventually, but he's versatile and athletic enough where he could play the off position that JOK did if he's not ready to play as well. So I think they looked at, I looked at the top 150 players that play that position according to Daniel Jeremiah's list, and there's only two listed, and that was Jihad Campbell and Schlesinger. And he was listed as the second best in the draft and 40th overall player. So I think they felt with what they wanted to find, if they didn't take him, there was really nobody else that could do what they wanted him to do, that athleticism and so forth. So I think that's the value pick that they took there at the position. So we'll see if it pays off, but I think that's why they took him there, because they knew there were a lot of running backs, and they took Judkins on the second pick there. And then, they came back and got Sampson a little while later.
Before I let you go, quarterback competition, how do you see that playing out? 4 of them that they say all of them are going to get reps and have a chance.
Yeah, it's hard to figure, I think Flacco and Pickett and the 2 rookies will be there, so they'll be splitting up the offseason. You remember last year Watson really wasn't doing anything the whole offseason. And then, so I think Joe Flacco will kind of get the first turn up. I think him and Pickett are really going to battle to be the starter. They're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster when it comes to the regular season. It's going to be interesting because you could make a case that Pickett is your starter and you keep the 2 rookies and you got 3 quarterbacks in their 20s, or you keep the seasoned veteran 40-year-old to steady the ship with the 2 rookies. You're going to keep the 2 rookies. But like I said, with the assets down the road, they could end up trading one. But I do think it's what does Sanders do? What does Gabriel do with the opportunity? And I think they'll split up between Flacco and Pickett to see who ends up starting. I think, my opinion is, I would think the Browns really were counting on Pickett being the starting quarterback this year, with Flacco maybe being insurance and bringing him in. But we'll see how it plays out. A long time before September. But by the time they get to the season, you'll probably see them try to trade one. But the thing about it, if you follow the money, Pickett's only guaranteed $2.6 million. Flacco's only guaranteed $3 million. And you got the 2 rookies. So between all of them, the money's only about $10 million. So it's not a big investment. But they'll try probably to move on and make a trade for somebody and pick up a pick. Probably the most tradable would be Pickett, but who knows what they end up doing.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
All right, Dave.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out with the Orange and Brown Report. Always really good and insightful Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, gentlemen. This is Keith calling from Cleveland. How about that draft? I don't understand why people are giving so much pushback because we got 4 quarterbacks in a row. You throw 4 quarterbacks out there, let them battle it out and see what happens. as far as the rookie quarterbacks, you can feel how you feel about one of them, but clearly they thought well enough to draft both of them. So my thing is this. All we need is one of them to hit. At worst, maybe one's a backup. I don't know. But either way, to add to it, the trade was great because you position yourself to find a quarterback this year. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, then you line yourself up next year to go get who you want. But in a perfect scenario, one of these rookies pops and they become that guy. Now we got 2 first-round picks to go get whatever we want. I literally think this was the best thing to do versus only drafting one. Go Dog Pound.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Chris Easterling. He is the Browns beat reporter for the Akron Beacon Journal. Chris, wait, 2 quarterbacks doesn't bother me. I was surprised by Dillon Gabriel. What were your thoughts?
The exact same thoughts as you have. I didn't have a problem really with the taking 2 quarterbacks, but taking Dillon Gabriel in round 3 just did not make sense at the time. But clearly they sort of fell in love with Dillon at an early portion of the process. And then, I think Shedeur getting drafted in the 5th round, then trading up to 144, I think was more circumstance than anything because, hey, it's an opportunity, a guy that was, on their board, clearly, a player they valued was there, and they took a chance. So, I think you throw. They're in a position where they just need to. I mean, it's sort of throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks, and 2 cracks at it. With Gabriel and Sanders, and see what you got, along with obviously Kenny and Joe. And if it doesn't work out, you've got 2 first-round picks in 2026, where the quarterback class is supposed to be much better than this year's class.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, 4 gives you 1 more chance than 3 to find somebody that can play the position long term. The question that I have, and I know you've written an article about it, and how do you juggle 4 quarterbacks, and if it's truly an open competition and you're going to get a look at everybody?
That's Kevin Stefanski, Tommy Rees, and Bill Musgrave's problem, not mine. But to be honest, that is the question: is how do you find it? Do you put more on the 2 rookies' plate, just sort of to kind of put them in the fire and see what they have, early, because you have an idea of what Kenny Pickett and what Joe Flacco can do, because Flacco, there's 17 years worth of experience, and Kenny, has been in the league 3 years already. So maybe you put a little bit more on the rookie just to get an idea, or maybe they really do try to find some way to relatively evenly split the reps. I'm going to be fascinated to see how they do it, because I've never seen a 4-man quarterback race. I think 3 is the largest I've ever seen, even just watching from afar. So this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and to your point, we haven't had a quarterback competition here since Kevin Stefanski's been head coach. Baker Mayfield was the guy, then it went to Deshaun Watson, and now they're kind of throwing it open. So it'll be interesting to see. What do you, again, another article you wrote, what to know about the upcoming rookie minicamp, which will be the end of next week and next weekend?
Yeah, Mother's Day weekend for those. Don't forget to get your mom something. But it's going to be just interesting to see these guys on the field together, because beyond just it's 3 days. It's really their acclimation opportunity to it's their welcome to the NFL moment, because they get to go through 3 days worth of practices and walkthroughs and meetings and everything. And I remember 2 years ago, that was where DeJuan Jones was a rookie, and it was watching him, and he could barely get through a drill, barely get through a practice session without sort of tapping out. And then you see the DeJuan Jones that developed once they got in the training camp, in that preseason just a few months later, and it was like night and day. So I think more than anything, you don't want to make too many hot takes out of what you're going to see over those 2 or 3 days, but at the same time, it's nice to sort of establish a baseline so that when they come back in August, July and August for training camp, you can sort of mark how they have progressed and the difference in them, even, just what did they do on their own, even, because that's the real thing is what do they do on their own, not just through the OTAs and many rookie and mandatory mini camps, but when they get away from the facility and are on their own, what do they do to improve themselves for training camp?
Which of the picks did you like the most, and which ones were kind of head scratchers to you?
I liked the Mason Graham pick. If it was in a vacuum, and I realize nothing's ever in a vacuum, and they just had the number 5 overall pick and hadn't traded down from number 2, I don't think anybody would have been disappointed with Mason Graham. They needed a defensive tackle help, and Mason Graham helps. He was the best defensive tackle on pretty much everybody's board going in. I love the Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin picks on day 2. I just, Judkins was maybe my favorite running back in this class just because of the way just the nastiness he runs with. I know Buckeye fans saw him this year, but, I had a lot of experience watching him, at Ole Miss over his 2 years down there. And, he's just sort of a nasty runner, I think fits in this division. And Fannin, there's just such versatility with what he can do that really, I think is something that could be fun to watch him grow and develop. And then, both day 3 picks, Dylan Sampson was another back who I really like coming out of Tennessee. He gives you sort of that lightning to accompany with the thunder from Judkins. And then, look, we've talked nonstop. The discussion and debate around Shadur Sanders has sort of jumped the shark, and I think it jumped the shark even before the draft. But to get him in the 5th round, regardless of what you thought of him coming in, that's good value. I liked him. I like the the bones of what is in his game because I think it sort of fits a Stefanski quarterback. So let's see, see what you can get out of him. And at the worst, you expended a 5th round pick. Like I say, though, the Gabriel one's the only one that really kind of 5'11", 205. I just the size as much as anything just really left me scratching my head.
Were you surprised no wide receivers were taken? I kind of kept looking at the guys that were there at 33, and then they went linebacker. And again, I got nothing against Schweissinger. I think he had a really productive year, but there were some pass catchers that were intriguing, some wide receivers.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at 33 it wasn't a wide receiver. I really liked Luther Burden out of Missouri. The 2 Iowa State kids were intriguing, Higgins and Knoll. But clearly, and we'd heard about this draft class, from a lot of different places, is that the value was going to be different for every team, it seemed like, and everybody who put a board together, because there weren't a lot of stars, but there's some solid players. And clearly, when they got to 33, the value they felt they could get with Carson Schweissinger outweighed the value of whatever receiver they had listed on their board. And they obviously on Monday they turn around, they signed Diontae Johnson. They put this, I'd never heard of this UFA tender on Elijah Moore, so that if he doesn't sign with somebody, if they sign with somebody, they get a pick. If not, there's a chance Elijah Moore comes back. So I guess that's their answer, at least for the short term, at the wide receiver position. But yeah, it was a little surprising. Definitely, I would have. I think in hindsight, if they knew that Shadur Sanders is going to be there at 5 in the 5th round, do they use a 3rd round pick on a wide receiver, or I mean, clearly, maybe not. Maybe, I mean, they always were going to take Dillon Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders.
Chris Easterling, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Chris Easterling, Browns beat reporter. Make sure to check him out. Akron Beacon Journal, always really good stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.